So.
We'll give her the comic book version. Good evening. Welcome to the City of Laconia Conservation Commission meeting for January 20th, 2021. I'm Dean Anson.
Deb Williams?
Lisa Moran.
Mike Foot.
Stacy Susie.
Ashley Ruprecht, Conservation Technician.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's start the meeting off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I always want to say play ball. Okay, so let's adjust the schedule and start with 50 Carriage Lane, so we don't tie everybody up. 50 Carriage Lane here? Oh, good.
Lucky for us.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Dawn Sheffer. My husband was unable to attend, but we are here seeking permission to build our retirement home at 50 Carriage Lane, and it would encroach on the 50-foot wetlands setback. So with the help of Higginson Land Services, our surveyor, we were able to provide the city with what you probably have in front of you, a to-scale drawing showing where the setback would cut through our property and the home, our deck, and where we would like to put some fencing around the backyard. But also where we would put, the contractor would put silt fencing to protect the wetlands and also the neighbors during construction.
Okay, and so,
The second attachment on the agenda under the item titled,
is it the PDF?
the Carriage Lane Concom PDF, the second attachment,
Right,
is the most recent map, because there were some updates from the initial submittal.
so I don't see where
So you say the lower one at 113?
Or the middle one?
My fingers are too fat.
Which one?
At the middle of it. The middle of it.
It's the middle.
This one.
link.
The
Yep.
middle one.
Yes, you got it.
And that's the current idea?
Do they reflect the TRC meeting? Is that what you're saying?
It's
Wetland buffer line,
It's
okay,
been
I got it now,
updated
I
since
got
the
it.
initial application submittal, so the second attachment is the most recent. map.
Right, I just looked at the TRC stuff though.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, and then we attached the TRC comments, yeah. so-
Okay.
Chair, may I ask a question?
Sure.
So this proposed fence is fence or a silt fence, or is this a permanent thing? I'm just asking.
The silt fence will be temporary during construction,
Is that,
and that is outlined here, the line with the X's through it.
all right. But that's not like a permanent fence?
No,
or-
it isn't. The wrought iron fence, which will be permanent, starts at the very corner of our deck, next to the drainage easement. And that is indicated by, let's see,
Oh,
proposed
it's
fence.
the one with
The
the
circles.
circles, yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so you have a dog?
We have two.
Oh.
All right, I gotta ask a question, sir.
Sure.
So the X's are represent, I guess I'm just not reading fast enough.
The silt fence,
The silt fence and the proposed, and the O's are dog fence?
is the wrought iron fence, probably at about a height of 5 feet.
All right,
just around the backyard and a little to the side yard on the right to contain our dogs and,
sure, what a great idea, having known this from something else. So what's the question and what are we looking for?
well, we're just seeking permission from you because we do encroach on
Oh,
a 50-foot
in
wetland
the
setback.
30 vice the 50?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chair, can I,
Sure.
it's not asking a question, I guess it's, well, no, I'm gonna wait, I'm sorry, thank you.
Do you know where this is?
Mm-hmm.
This house is not
What is the
built yet,
wetland like?
It is not.
so this is a house that's not built. What we're looking at, the constraints of
Sorry?
the setbacks
Or
here
exactly.
are,
Yes.
Right?
What?
The 50-foot setback, the
it's a
wetland
long
buffer
day.
line is drawn on here
Yeah.
as it cuts through our property and also the neighbors as well.
so you have a 25-foot setback from the carriage lane,
Yes,
10-foot setback from the side.
yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, if I may just add that this is an abutting property to Ken Brunel's property, which we had recently saw the application for Carriage Lane as well, for relief from the wetland buffer. So the envelope that you see the house being built is within the 30-foot wetland setback buffer from when the lots were originally made for this development. Now the wetland buffer is 50 feet, and Mrs. Schaefer here is asking for relief from the 50-foot buffer to go back to the original 30-foot wetland buffer.
So this is I used to live across the pond.
Ah, okay.
So this is, where it says tie course up here on the top of the drawing is a man-made pond. There are 3 man-made ponds. And, this is one of the man-made ponds. And there's the question as to whether it was the ponds were constructed for fire suppression or just what the purpose was, but they're man-made. And when the ponds were created, I don't believe, in fact, I know there was no wetland buffer. So now these properties have a constraint because of wetland buffer being placed around them.
Mr. Chair, well, I do have a question. I mean, even based on what you said, I mean, it's a wetland now. So, it may not have been, like, with the wetland buffer. I mean, it was always a wetland. You're saying it wasn't like a constructed wetland. It was always a wetland. There just was no wetland buffer when things were installed, and then a buffer came in afterwards. Well, one of the things I'm looking at here is about erosion sediment controls, silt fencing be installed. No vegetation removal in buffer, only dead, diseased, dying trees to be removed. That seems like an awfully broad thing, and especially, it doesn't mention about leaving stumps, and there's nothing in there. I don't know if that needs to be tightened up a little bit in terms of what they're allowed to remove. I certainly understand that you don't want a tangled mess of deadness out there, but at the same time, there's some things that you might want to leave just to help to help hold in soils in the ground, but
Yes.
still have something not ugly to look at.
What
So,
we're actually referring to is when we just moved back here from Iowa. When we bought the land, when we saw it for sale, it was actually part of a subdivision from the house next door. And so we made an offer and came to an agreement, but couldn't close on it for several months later. And then we just moved home from Iowa this fall. And when we went over to see the land, we noticed that people, as the land slopes down into the pond, because it was a vacant lot, people had dumped lots of trees and debris from cleanup in their yard, limbs and so forth. And that's really what we mean, to clean that out of there, but not take that vegetation out, not take what is growing there out, but to clean that mess up.
And I would propose, even if there's a dead tree that hadn't been done, that had been there and died, maybe because of being dumped on or whatever, that root system be left in place. That's all I was just making comment on, that maybe that language could be tightened up a little bit more.
Well, yeah. So I look at this, and this has not been constructed.
Correct.
So all of this is put forth that can be changed or isn't put there. And I'm wondering if in any way, and I would ask this at a ZBA level, is that can that house not be constructed in a form that's within the envelope without encroaching upon that? And it seems to me that you'd be able to have the same volume of the house.
We cannot,
Yeah.
actually. We did try. We actually did have to have the architect make the house smaller already when we realized that we were encroaching on the buffer. So we decreased it by about 400 square feet. We cannot move it any closer to the front, to the road. We could with permission.
Might I say again, thinking outside of a box, that we could not construct this in something, if you need that amount of volume for a house, in some way that is set within the envelopes of what is there.
I think the other thing that makes this more complicated is that the Long Bay Homeowners Association has certain requirements. So I think it's, walking kind of a fine line here of the city requirements, the zoning requirements, and Long Bay. So if you look at this drawing, the middle one, this house aligns with the existing house to the right of it, to the east of it. And I think that's, anyway.
And that's the one we just gave a variance to. Correct?
Pardon?
This is the last one we just saw from that development, the one to the right?
No, the CUP that was granted was the house to the west.
Oh.
Opposite side.
The Kenneth Brunel.
Okay.
So your lawn and your backyard, it's just gonna be grass?
Yes.
And so between the proposed fence and the water, what are you gonna do there?
That is basically where all the vegetation is that is growing now. There are trees in there.
That's not really part of their property, right?
Yes, that's true.
It comes to a strange point in the middle.
Yep.
And,
Why do we need the deck? I mean, if we're sitting here for a deck, and I'm gonna give this to the ZBA thing, why do we need the deck? Why can't it be more conformative to the rules that exist? I mean, it's only a drawing.
Well, the deck is part of our desire to build within the structure.
Of course.
do you know how many feet it is between the edge of your property and the pond?
It is the edge of our property to the pond, I do not know.
Can you guesstimate?
Is there a number there? Actually, it is 6 foot 9 inches. There is a
So
number
that
there.
line there is the pond,
From the proposed fence to the pond
is 6 feet.
is 6.9 inches, yes.
6
Right.
feet 9 inches.
Yeah.
That's the closest point. Then it gets further, I believe.
Right. So on the other side of that fence,
Mhm.
you have grass on your side.
We will have grass there as well and maintain right to the vegetation or to the end of our property.
I would have trouble with that.
We'd have-
Only because it's so close to the pond.
It is what is there now, though. The grass is there now.
Right, but what I'm saying is, after you put the fence in,
Uh-huh.
I would propose that you let it grow on the other side.
Okay.
On the pond side of the fence. Is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
Okay.
Because once you put that structure in too, you're gonna find a lot more water draining off that property quickly, and the longer the grass is or any other vegetation, it's going to
Okay.
help contain
Oh,
any,
That's fine.
any pollution and.
Sure.
Yeah.
That would be fine. Even if you wanted us to plant some tall grasses there, we could, to help with that.
Some natural
Yes.
vegetation, sure.
Yes. We're using CBH Landscaping as our landscape architect, and
Okay.
he has everything drawn out for us already, so we can certainly add that in.
Okay, do we want to make some recommendations?
I would recommend personally that the building envelope be constructed at this point where it has not previously been constructed, but be constructed within the envelope of what the current rules are. And not just dismissing them, not just moving on.
What, which rules? The wetland?
Is it the 35? Is it the 50? We're putting in a deck here, we're just, oh, pardon me.
So I guess the question that I would ask is if we move, can we move the house closer to Carriage Lane?
Or we can reconstruct the intended design. Not everything has to be square.
I think there's probably, do we know the setbacks from roads? Isn't it, have to be 25 feet?
25
Carriage Lane.
feet, yes.
So you're kind of
Yeah, it's,
hemmed in a little there.
Yeah.
You would make it tall and skinny,
Or a kink.
not what you want from a retirement home. You want
Correct.
one-
That's correct.
Just following the rules.
I know. What is the drainage easement like on the left side?
It's just dug out into the land.
it's a swale.
The swale,
As well. Yep.
is it, do they mow it at all? Do they keep it up at all?
It's well maintained. No?
Well,
That's not what we want to hear, but that's okay.
Well,
she doesn't know, so
I
know.
don't know.
I understand.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
a
I'm not
swale-
very uneducated with
No,
this. I
no.
come from a medical background,
Okay,
so.
a swale is kind of on the same theory what I was talking about
Uh-huh.
with taller grasses, because it helps slow the water down, and any pollution that is like sediments or things like that will fall out, get caught in the grass. So some maintenance in a drainage swale, I'm assuming it's like probably 2 feet deep,
Yep,
maybe.
it's not
and
that deep.
yeah, and that, you're gonna wanna kinda keep longer grasses in there. It doesn't have to be ugly type stuff, it can also be flowers, it can be other stuff that grows in there.
Oh, so that's part of your property, actually?
It is.
Oh, okay.
And it needs to be maintained.
It, when I say maintained, I can see that it's a swell, I can see that it's there, but there is growth in the middle of it, but
Right.
it's still, you can see the outline of it.
If it fills in with sands and stuff, that's what I mean by maintained, it needs to be kept, and
There
long.
isn't, it's vegetation that's there, it's not dirt or anything.
Yeah. So, don't feel like it's a wrong answer, it's
No,
just, I
I
understand.
have no idea.
It's okay.
My experience is what would happen is, before the Brunels built their house, CBH would do the landscaping by mowing, and they would just mow Brunel's property, cut the swale, and then and that's just the way that they did it. Now, if, I think that, I think, I guess we could tackle a bigger fish and go to Long Bay Homeowners Association and ask them not to cut their swales, to leave the grass higher. We could do that, but I think that's a totally separate issue.
Well, I think the biggest discussion point is Mike's suggestion, and I don't remember, the Brunel's property was pre-existing, and then they came in for,
No, that was a new build.
That was a new build?
That was a vacant property when we purchased our land.
okay.
So, and it's a larger property than ours. And it's this, the house is larger, the building is larger, the property is the same size.
And I'm thinking their encroachment on the buffer was about the same.
Yes, and then also they came back later on and asked for permission for a fire pit to be built, and that was granted as well.
I think we heard that one.
Was it?
I don't remember.
Was that? I feel deeper than that. Okay, and I'm going to go here with this Higginson Land Services. If we come in here and we're just going to ignore the fact that it is a 50-foot setback instead of a 35, and we come in here and there's a really nice drawing here that shows it with the 35-foot setback with an 8-foot deck, a 6-foot front to it, well encroaching on it. Why would it not be so easy on the CAD program to create a building in an envelope that actually conformed to the 50-foot setback? Just curious.
I guess the question I have is the house already designed?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
On a piece of paper, not with any,
The house is designed, the lumber is ordered, we're waiting for our permits,
presumptuous.
and permission from you all. It was redesigned, when we realized that we were too big. It was redesigned already once, which set us back a couple of months. And,
So,
we're trying to stay within the guidelines of,
Then why not follow the
The long day
guidelines
is
as
just-
written from beginning?
well, I think we didn't realize at the time we were planning the house, I think that the 30-foot change to 50-foot change was done after we purchased the land.
In 1985? What time was the setback?
I think that the setback was 30, and then it was changed to
What year
50.
was that put in?
Let's see, when did we put it in? Because
You know.
when I was converting a deck on my house to a porch, staying within roughly the same footprint, but I had to get a conditional use permit, just like you, because I was changing from a deck to a porch.
Right.
And it was right after, we had changed it. At my suggestion, we changed it to a 50-foot.
50-foot,
So
okay.
I
I'm sorry, I was under the assumption it
No,
was
no,
done
no,
just
no,
last
it's-
year, that it was changed just last year.
So, Mr. Chair, I have a question for you. We have this in front of us. I've never been in this gated community, so I don't know. How likely is it that we'll get a lot of other plans looking for variances or waivers, or, I don't know. I don't know how much time, and so I guess we have two problems in front of us. Consideration of this, and then going to the homeowners association and saying it stops here.
You read my mind, because I think the area around the ponds is almost built out.
It is.
This might be, there might be,
I think this is the last one
I was gonna
at
say,
Willow Pond, yes.
so, this is the last lot that hasn't been developed. And so I guess if this was the first piece of property that was in Willow Pond, this community, that was coming before us, and there were many more to come after us, then, that would be a reason to try to get things changed. And I think, we're at the opposite end of the spectrum here, that, this is the last one.
Yes.
So, it's like the horse is out of the barn, now what are we going to do? And I think that's why I said, maybe the thing we could do is have a meeting with the homeowners association, either Long Bay or Willow Pond, and the Willows, the other, anyway, and make suggestions on how they maintain their swales and, preserve the quality of the water in the pond.
Is there a way for us to work with them so that it goes beyond a suggestion, and it's like, okay, we've built out now, and now we've got these issues, and this is because we've allowed more encroachment than we would have liked, we have more pressure, and so I think these things need to be done. Is there a way to go beyond just suggestion?
I think, if I may, I think definitely with Willow Pond, because they are currently rewriting their covenants. And I have been speaking with Mike McNalt about that, because there were many things in there that they weren't going to, that they had regarding building that had been changed, and it was just all over the place, and he said they're in the midst of rewriting everything, so I think it would be a perfect time. And if you give my husband and I specific instructions on how you would like us to maintain the backside of our property and the swale, we would certainly abide by that.
So we can only make suggestions. So thank you for that offer.
Well,
We'll
if
make
you make the
suggestions.
suggestions to us, we will do that. Because we don't want to endanger anything, we don't, we just want to build this home, and we, in dealing with Willow Pond and going through this process, the requirements to submit to them to get their permission are even tenfold to what the city requires.
Right. Right.
So we've learned a lot, and one of the things that we did learn is that many have been given permission to build and with the encroachment on the 50-foot setback.
Right, and that's exactly my point. You're not the first person, the first developer that comes in asking for. So let me tell you what I did at my house when I was putting the porch on. My agreement was that I would plant low bush blueberries that grow about this tall or lower, and I planted them along the edge of the pond.
Okay.
And I did that to keep the soil from eroding into the pond. And I did it because it provided wildlife habitat, provided a source of food for wildlife. And anyway, so that would be the kind of thing. There's wetland species that you could plant that would be pretty. There are irises. And so, those are the kinds of,
Certainly.
so, anyway, okay,
Mr. Chair,
sure.
we could provide her with that PDF of landscaping at the water's edge, and she's got all those recommendations in there.
Right.
That would be wonderful.
So there is a publication, and Ashley, if you could,
Would you want that within the fenced area or outside of the fenced area, or both?
I had dogs
Yep.
Yeah, I think for your sanity, outside.
on the outside of the
Okay,
fence.
perfect.
And it also, I would say that too, because some of the plant species, I can't tell you right off the top of my
Yeah.
head, but some of the plant species might be low toxicity or make them sick, so outside might be better for your
Sure.
peace of mind.
I mean, but we wouldn't mind lining the inside of the back of the back fence, lining the inside with like boxwood shrubs or something like that to help as well. So, but definitely outside, we would take your recommendations and do that.
Thank you.
I mean, I think that, you know, you're gonna have a deck here, and the deck is, you know, so that you can look out at the pond and see the wildlife. So you don't want something that's gonna grow too tall.
Correct.
But certainly, some of the, you know, some of the plants, and we'll give you this landscaping at the water's edge, some you might wanna put in your drainage easement,
Uh-huh,
just so it's not just mowed vegetation.
yes, we
Might be,
would do
you
that.
know, some
Can I
flowers or.
pull up a picture on my phone and show you the vegetation that is in the back of the land, right at the water's edge?
Sure.
Okay.
What kind of regulations do they have about fertilizer and stuff there? Do they have any?
They would tell you, but, you know, it's a homeowners association, and it was a source of frustration for me, because
So we can put
I
that
would try to do,
in our recommendations.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I would try to do, but not everybody plays by the rules.
I have to find it in here with thousands of other pictures.
I think
But I
there
do
was
have-
actually some invasives there. I think there were autumn olives
Most likely.
that were growing there when I lived there, but I haven't lived there for whatever it is, 7
There's
years.
a
or-
lot back there.
7 years.
It almost blocks our,
Okay.
it does block the view of the pond. It's coming, I'm getting closer.
So as I was saying, just from my perspective, it's roots in the ground is the most important thing. So
There's a
I
lot.
don't care if the bush is 12 feet tall and you want to cut it down to 3 feet,
Yep,
I'm happy with it as long as the roots stay in the ground.
I'm coming to it. This has been such a long process for us. Here we go. This one. All this vegetation right here is what is at the water's edge. It's very tall.
Maybe you,
I will walk it around.
yeah, thank you. Sorry.
It's okay. This vegetation here is what is at, behind the property at the water's edge.
Okay. Pretty green.
It
Yeah, it looks like pictures or something.
This vegetation right here.
Right,
is
right,
what's at
right,
the
right.
water's edge.
Yeah, and so, okay, so the one thing you might want to do is ask CBH to identify
You
invasive
don't know me.
species.
You don't know me, please.
Okay, I will,
So,
this is the vegetation that's, it's mostly trees.
Yeah.
But like I said, when you walk back there and look down, people have dumped
yeah,
a
Right.
lot of debris down there, excuse
Right.
me.
okay. Okay, so, do we want to make a
So-
motion here?
Do we have to make a motion, or do we just make recommendations?
A recommendation, okay, whatever.
Do we
Recommendation.
need a motion?
A motion to support or not support, and then followed by conditions and recommendations.
I'll make a motion that we support the plan with our recommendations to be attached.
Okay. And that would be the planting recommendations?
And fertilizer recommendations, that kind of thing.
Okay,
For
great.
the recommendations, it was, landscaping or planting grasses and no removal of stumps between the fence and the water, plantings in the swale, and, yep, no removal of stumps if she's removing anything.
And no fertilizer.
No fertilizer.
Okay.
And I think if you could have CVH, identify invasive species, because I've been here before, and I thought that there was at least autumn olive there, which is,
What do you want them to do with it if it is?
I want them to cut it to the ground. Cut it to the ground and keep it trimmed, right?
Remove the stumps?
Well, that's gonna be a long-term maintenance issue, but you're right, I mean, I've been just saying, keep the stumps, so.
Once you cut it down to the ground, I mean, I did it, I just cut it to the ground, and then on my property, I'd cut it to the ground, and then I would mow over it, and I would kept it down, and it finally just said, okay, I guess I'm gonna give up.
Okay.
Okay, what other,
Well, I was waiting for discussion, should I just bring it?
well, I thought we were making a list of
Yeah, okay.
suggestions,
If you have more, I have those 4.
okay? Any other suggestions?
Not for her, here's what I was thinking, and I don't know if we have to, so should we say, that somehow we qualify this, there's a qualifying attachment that said, the fact that we are supporting this based on the fact that this place is pretty much already built out, and that if this were a development just getting underway, we would not be in favor of encroachment on the buffers. I was just saying, you know what I mean, I don't know if that can be added as language.
I can add it in the top paragraph before I mention the motion to support and just
Yeah,
explain the
'cause-
rationale behind it.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not
Yeah,
her issue, it's just, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I can add that in there.
And, so what are the recommendations or suggestions again?
So I have that during removal of dead, diseased and dying trees, the root systems are to remain. That vegetation will be planted between the wrought iron fence and the water and within the swale. There is no use of fertilizer. I'm guessing we wanna just restrain that to with containing phosphorus and.
Right.
Okay, and then, that CBM will identify invasive species and properly remove and keeping stumps intact.
And there shouldn't be any equipment back there, just hand digging, hand removing.
Okay, certainly.
Are you going to feel a need for a fire pit out here?
Absolutely not, no.
Well, I'm curious. It turns
put-
out it's real.
Just gonna put it in her front yard.
No. Not making up. Turns out it's real and it's a
I
hanging
know.
chad, as it were.
So,
Can I just get some clarification on the hand digging comment? So she is putting in a wrought iron fence and she is requesting relief from the buffer, so are you saying from the 30-foot to the reference line of the water body, or are you saying
I was saying from the fence to the
To this
pond.
fence to the pond?
so, Mike, are you looking to add a restriction for any further?
Truly. And I'm going to be honest with you because I see this go on. As we move forward in this and we go for a recommendation, it goes forward, I am going to say I do not recommend it because I believe that the structure could be made to conform to what it is, being as it's not been constructed. It's all on paper.
I understand.
And so when we go there, I'll be honest, and that's how I'm going to vote.
I guess I was asking if you were asking us to consider, in the recommendations to recommend that no further structures or amenities be constructed in that area.
Sure, I would say that.
Okay, anything else? Okay, so,
We need a second.
right, we need Need a second?
All right, second. I can feel the blades.
Okay. Any additional discussion? Okay. All in favor of supporting the application with the recommendations, the list of recommendations, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Hey,
Okay. Passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. You have a good day.
Thank you, you too. Do I need to stay for the rest of the meeting or no?
We'll be in touch.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. Thank you
Take
so
care.
much. Welcome to the area.
Okay. Next is Layton Avenue North. Oops.
Hi,
Hi, how you doing?
good, how are you?
Does everybody have a plan? Otherwise, I can utilize one of those easels back there and do it the old-fashioned way.
I think,
Do what?
do we
I
have
could,
plans?
I could set up a plan the old-fashioned way
or
with the
can you
easel, or-
send it right to this? I've had a
think-
bunch of meetings where they feed us.
I think we have it.
It's in there, it's in the first attachment under the application and all the way at the end. So it was included in the application, and the application hasn't changed.
So like 17, is that what you're saying?
17 to 17, yeah.
Yeah, that's the,
Yeah.
that's the revision, actually. That's the original, but it's mostly there. Did you,
If you want, you can move the.
I think I sent that to you on Friday. The only minor changes are the ones that were brought up.
So we
at
have the
TRC.
picture, we're looking at Layton Ave, we can see
Sure, yep,
the
so.
setback from the well, we can see wetland buffers and topo.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so if everybody has it up, there is a latest revision, which was post the TRC meeting, which was last week, but I'll get around to it. There were really relatively minor changes. And most of them weren't germane to the, I guess, the environmental component of this. But if it suits the board and everybody has their plan up, I'll just kind of walk everybody through it. My name is Spencer Tate. I'm a certified wetland scientist with Meridian Land Services. And I'm also kind of managing this project. I'm here on behalf of Chris Cahill and Chris Cahill Construction to seek the Conservation Commission comment prior to Planning Board hearing for a conditional use permit application for buffer impacts associated with primarily the driveway, but basically improvements with a compliant home and septic. We attended, like I said, we attended the TRC a week ago, and we've addressed the staff comments on the plan that is very close to what you're looking at. The project proposes to install a state and locally compliant house and septic system. The existing lot, we're on Layton Avenue North, we're on the east side of Squam. I would estimate we're within 500 feet of the Meredith town line. The lot is an existing lot of record approved by the planning board in 1977, prior to any of the buffer regulations in town. The lot has two buildable areas because it's bisected with a wetland. As you can see, that kind of runs north to south on that plan, or up and down on the plan. The proposal currently has the improvements in the, I guess, the westerly buildable area, which doesn't involve any direct impacts to wetland areas. Let's see. The project intends to utilize straw bale barrier to limit translocation of sediments. And vegetation removal will be limited to only to what is necessary for those areas within the buffer. There's no other viable way to access a buildable area on this lot without impacts to the wetland buffer. And the areas of buffer disturbance that will accept sheet runoff Upon project completion, will be seeded with a native erosion control seed mix. The only other component of this, so it's lot 21-253-17 is the proposed building lot, or the existing building lot that we're proposing building the house on. This project will involve an easement over lot 21-253-16, which they've, the owners of that parcel have endorsed a comment saying that they're okay with this proposal moving forward.
And it's
So-
just a
May,
little,
may I ask right in there what the easement is or what becomes an easement to the 21-253-16?
Sure, so the, we do have an easement line depicted, and I'll point to it up on this, so maybe you can find it on your plan. Of course, this is one of the items that was updated. I sent that Friday afternoon, I don't know if,
Yeah, it didn't
it's,
get
it might be,
included
it's
in
obviously
this,
too late to
yeah.
disseminate, but, this line going kind of askew at an angle is a proposed easement line, to capture any of the improvements associated with the driveway to get access to lot 21-253-17.
What does that mean? Does that mean that there's a road over there or some sort of right-of-way that's given to it?
No, so the easement will be it will be an access easement for the benefit of lot 21-253-17 over lot 21-253-16. It's essentially gonna be a civil agreement that says, yes, you can access your property through my property. The reason why we're accessing at that point is, I'm not sure how familiar with the stretch of road you are, but the right-hand side of the road as you're proceeding northerly is, it's a good, well, what do we have here? It's 10 or 12 feet along the frontage of the subject parcel. So it's a much flatter, I say flatter, it's about a 12% driveway going in there, but it's the only reasonable means of access into this lot. So it's kind of a gaff from the 1977 subdivision that probably didn't have any, 3D contours on it. But fortunately, the seller of this property is the current owner of 21-253-16, so there's a little bit of an interest in, keeping this project moving forward.
So what we're looking here when we see the crosshatches is really just a seed mix that's proposed to be put down.
Yeah, so I have two different hatch patterns. One is trying to detail the area of buffer impact to wetlands. So it's just shy of 4,000 square feet, 3,943 square feet. And then the hatch, the more, diamond pattern hatch is the areas, those are the down gradient areas that will be accepting runoff associated with the driveway, and those are going to be the areas with the erosion control seed mix.
And one more time, in this proposed driveway,
Yep.
right? The impact on 21-253-16 is merely that edge, I'm gonna call it north from this view. Is that the only impact we're looking here, or is there more?
These are the limits of the impact with the project. So this is essentially a site plan of the total build out, so there's nothing additional proposed.
And to develop 21-253-16, would there be another driveway in off Layton?
Unknown.
So I told Spencer before the meeting started that I live on Layton Avenue North, so I know this property. Lot 16, I don't believe there's room to put any additional building there because the pond takes up most of the lot. although I don't know exactly where the lot line is, but you put some flagging in, some bushes, and I assume that that flagging represents where you would put the driveway. That's what my assumption was.
Yeah, and I would also be inclined to agree with you, but without doing, as a land use consultant, without doing a study of lot 16, it's not my role to encumber them by saying, no, the remainder of the lot is unbuildable. But certainly to me, the pond does hog up a good chunk of their frontage, and then it's extremely steep beyond that portion.
Aye. Aye.
Ashley, are we comfortable with the items on the conservation checklist that are not submitted?
That's up to you, it's your checklist.
I'm just saying, as our staff, and having talked to this gentleman, I didn't know if you were.
You can certainly request why at this time.
So pages 10 and 11.
Okay, I guess I have, have you done any soil borings?
We did test pits, yes.
So where did you do the test pits?
Test pits are located, they are depicted on the plan. The one that we're, I guess, interpolating from the most would be test pit 3, which is, let's see, how do I orient us? It's due east of the T in north, on Layton Avenue North, if you can see that by the road. If you slide your finger over, like a constellation, then
So your leach field is just below it there from
That's right.
512
that's right. So it's about a half,
to 5.
kind of a half moon
Yeah.
indication.
Okay, so you've done test pits. Did you do test pits on lot 16?
Negative.
And it's
Okay,
not theirs
so-
to do so.
So you don't know that if you start digging this driveway that you're gonna hit rock?
Well, most of it is fill going in there, not cut. So, and to be frank, just looking at the surface, we will hit rock. If,
Right.
wherever a shovel enters the ground there, but it's, in that location, it's gonna be all fill to the road, except for maybe removal of the topsoil and the loamy material that you don't want under a driveway.
Okay, so I guess when I looked at this project, I thought you would have better access off lot 18, which is the next one to the south. It's much less of a grade. And I don't know whether you spoke to the landowner there, but there's a house on that, and they have a driveway, and I looked at it, I thought you could get, would be a more gradual slope.
Yep, and I concur. The access is slightly easier there. However, it sounded like lot 18, they were not amenable to an easement. And then also that poorly drained wetland area does continue on, and then there's a cross culvert. It's, I guess we'd probably put it down where the graphic scale of the plan is. It doesn't
Right.
impact the lot anymore, but accessing using their existing driveway and then crossing into this buildable area would require wetlands impact and buffer impact. It doesn't remove the problem at hand. But I'd agree with you that the grades were more conducive to the driveway access there. But it doesn't seem like that's a viable option.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So now as I look at this, I'm curious. Is in any way 21-253-16 going to have to give up access to itself to be able to develop later on? I mean, I'm seeing this proposed driveway come across this corner of it here. Does that
I don't know why.
still allow 16 to have its own access?
That land is theirs, so I don't see why they wouldn't be able to utilize the portions of the driveway that are over their land to access buildable portions of their lot. If they wanted to if for some reason there was some conflict that this driveway created as that was their only buildable area.
And yet here, the reasoning for it down on the Layton Ave is because of elevation, or why can't it be held to its own property?
The owner's frontage. So in order to create a cut that would make a reasonable grade into a house lot along its frontage, a reasonable slope, we would do it maybe 2 to 1 unless you wanted a retaining wall in there. We're talking a 12 to 16 foot retaining wall. You're basically gonna hog up the buildable area of that front portion with excavation into that site. Furthermore, it's probably ledgy at a certain point. I mean, we're talking about 16 feet of cut to create a reasonable driveway. It's just unreasonable. It's difficult without actually seeing it.
Sure.
But if, you know, I know we probably don't have time to cruise by, but the,
Interesting.
it's-
Just have
it's
to have to ask the questions.
Yeah, sure.
Of course, you know, especially when you start to bring right-of-ways onto other properties that
sure, I mean, it's,
become problematic.
yeah, we
later.
certainly don't jump into doing an easement over somebody's land as, you know.
But it is within the realm of the people who own it.
Yeah, and it's a civil agreement. You could grant any of your abutters an easement between the two without municipal involvement.
Correct.
So that's essentially what's going on here.
So this is on the corner, 16 is on the corner of Layton Avenue North and Collins Brook Road. And I don't, if the area, I don't know the extent, I don't know where the lot line is for 16, but if I owned 16 and I could build on it, I would build off Collins Brook. I wouldn't build off Layton Avenue North in terms of a driveway. I wouldn't do it because I think too much of the land along Layton Avenue North is this pond. So I have,
I see.
so I have so you've done some test pits, and, you know, frankly, I don't see what's the symbol for test pit?
Test pit is it's basically it's a circle with half of it filled in, almost
You'll
like
see it right,
Okay,
you'll
yeah, I
see
got
it.
it. Okay,
just
so it's-
Test
straight
pit
yin yang
3,
without the dots, I
Right,
suppose.
okay, so your test pit 3,
Yes,
how deep did you dig that?
48 inches.
yeah, touch over, 48 inches.
And your drainage is
Seasonal's 26 inches.
26.
Okay, and how deep is the leach field gonna be?
How deep is the leach field gonna be? So bed bottom elevation? Or,
514.6?
no, so it'll actually be 1.6 feet below that will be the bed bottom elevation. And then coarse sand gets filled in below that to the sea horizon. with
Okay,
the draining
so,
material, so it's a little,
I'm sorry.
I don't know the best way to answer the question.
Okay, so all right, so was the bottom of the test pit below the bottom of the leaching field?
Yes.
Okay. If I'd asked that question to begin with, it would have made it a lot easier for you.
Just gotta get there, Dean.
So, I guess I'm looking at this from a couple of different standpoints. So one of them is the hydrological impact of, you're gonna put in a well. How deep is the well gonna be?
Ooh, that's,
Oh, we don't know, we haven't dug it.
that's right.
Is the well going to be cased so that it doesn't, so the proposed well is close to the pond. So my concern is, will the pond be drained by this well?
I don't believe so. I mean, Squam is across the street, and I'd say
You
with
could find yourself well below
this-
the level of Winnisquam before
that's
you
right.
got water.
I know, but if you don't case the well properly, the water from the pond will leach down the side of the casing and could contaminate your drinking water, A, or could drain the pond, and drain the pond.
So I guess I would hope that the well installer would case the well into bedrock.
Properly, like they always do, because they're covered by,
It wouldn't be the first time I saw a well installed.
I'd agree. Unfortunately, at this stage, I have little
No, that's-
control over that.
This isn't your purview, but it's, so,
Is this a vernal pool?
Both wetland areas were analyzed for vernal pools. When I did the delineation, I believe it was May 11th. Yeah, May 11th of 2020, so right in the peak time. And although this year was abnormally dry, the spring was, I guess we'd call it normal. The pond stays wet throughout the year. I suspect it may have dried up a good chunk this past year. Again, it was an anomalic year. But I suspect that hydro period stays too wet, too long. It's sustained wetness. It doesn't support the drying up that vernal pool biota needs. And then the poorly drained wetland in there, we actually crossed that on foot when we were doing the survey work. It just doesn't have the depth of water. I suspect the springtime it becomes wetland because it rains, it fills up, it can hold the water for 3 or 4 days, dries out. But
And where does, you say it's poorly drained, does it drain down to the south there?
yeah, so poorly drained is a soil classification of it, meaning that it had less than 4 to 8 inches of muck or like sapric organic material on top of it. But it did meet it's super shallow to suits water table. So yes, it does drain to the south slowly, but the poorly drained, I guess I'm just trying to say that that's not an indicator of the flowage through there, it's an indicator of the
So there's
soils
no
in there.
culvert on that end of the
There
road?
is a culvert, again, it's probably, I
On the
think it's
north
around where
side,
the
right?
scale bar
On the
is.
south, I'm asking.
Yeah, but it's before you get to I believe it's before you get to the next driveway for the southerly lot.
And do you think it handles some of that drainage?
Oh, yes, yeah, that's where it's draining, yeah.
So it's going across that way, okay.
okay, so, all right, I'm confused because, so the vernal pool you're talking about is the poorly drained wetland?
No
Oh,
vernal pool.
no
There's no vernal pool because the
I was
pond doesn't meet
asking
the drying.
At the top.
Both of them are hydro period issues. The pond is too wet and the poorly drained wetland dries out too quickly. You can't get the year-over-year sustained biology that you need for vernal pool activity. Certainly amphibian breeding habitat. I'm sure you'll see a snake in there, but you're not gonna get the hydro period, the 2, 3, 4 months of slowly draining out, slowly drying, evapotranspiration, removal of water until it's a nice bed for.
Does any of that drain into that north culvert
Any of this poorly, no,
of the pond?
no, they're separate wetland systems.
No, I mean the pond and the north
Right.
culvert are not attached.
The pond and the culvert to the north,
Yeah,
they're not directly attached. When the pond does fill up, Christmas Day here, I'm sure it started spilling across the street. Or spilling into that culvert. But no, the culvert's up just enough to keep that pond elevation, I guess, wet, keep it a pond.
Is the driveway gonna be paved?
Driveway is going to be top dress, to be determined. If the commission has a preference, I'm sure the client would entertain it. With a 12% driveway grade, certainly pavement would be
better than washing out,
right.
dumping all the particulate into the river and all.
No, but the particulates would go, the driveways along Layton Avenue are, some are paved, some are not paved. Even the ones on the lake side, on the western side of Layton Avenue, some of them are not paved.
Agreed.
I
Yep.
think that's right. But anyway,
And how far is the edge of that pond to the edge of your driveway?
Edge of the pond to the edge of the driveway, it's to scale, I think we're under 10 feet.
Is a pond a human-made dam pond or a flexible beaver pond? Yes?
Not sure what a flexible beaver pond is, but
How
it's,
they move, things up
Yeah.
and Z, down and Z.
again, I think the elevation that the pond is kind of maintained at is gonna be the bottom of the existing culvert that spills across. If I had to guess, it's kind of a combination. I suspect that it was a really wet spot there before, probably very poorly drained, could have been surface water. Then the road got put in, I don't know how many years ago, and basically cut it off and created a berm through this area. I suspect that at one point that pond and Squam were a larger wetland complex, but now they're separated by, 150 feet of terra firma. So I think it's resultant of human activity that's become a pond. I guess the way the state views wetland areas in terms of abandonment, it's basically a window of 5 years. So for the last 5 years, it's been natural. So it's your regular pond, but I didn't see any beaver activity. I don't think it's large enough to
Okay,
support
we
that.
don't mind beaver. We're pro beaver. It's all right.
So I'm sorry, so the elevation of the driveway is 492 about?
Elevation of the driveway it's sloping, so it depends where you're standing on the driveway. Where it meets the road, we're right around, I think we're between 488 and
Okay, I see that.
489 and a half.
How about between the driveway and the pond?
Driveway and the pond,
So I see, so you're talking about a retaining wall on the side of the driveway,
correct.
and then does it drop down to the pond, or is the pond above it?
It will drop down to the pond. It'll drop down to the ground surface, the existing ground surface, and then,
So the driveway is above the pond?
that's correct.
Almost like a dam.
well, there's gonna be a retaining wall, right?
Correct. Yeah, we have to propose a retaining wall so that the fill that you need for the driveway doesn't go into the ponded area.
How close to the
Okay, so in terms of the vernal pool, you're talking about you're saying you looked at both pieces of the property, 16 and 17, and neither of them have any vernal pools.
So I looked at the wetland areas that are depicted on this plan, and neither of them are vernal pools. That's correct. You're referring to the assessment in the materials?
Right.
Yep.
How many trees are gonna be cut on the property?
I don't know it, I don't know. Would you, like a stem count or
Well,
area?
That is
or-
on our conservation checklist that Lisa had.
Yeah, right now it's forested. I would estimate somewhere between 100 and 200, with the vast majority of those being less than 1 inch.
Do you have a percent of the acreage? Like, what percent will be cleared, in other words?
Of the gross acreage, let's see, so 2,000, it's 2 acres, so we're right north of 80,000 square feet. The buffer impact area is 4,000 square feet, so that's 1% of 2 acres is the buffer impact. And let's multiply that by 3, why don't we? So call it 3% will be cleared. But of course, some of that's on lot 16. I don't have that acreage with me, but.
So all of this here on 21,253.17, which is a total of 201 acres, we're looking at impacting the front of this with an access from lot 21,253.16 for the driveway, which is given because it's of the same owner. Most of this seems to be pressed up front to Layton Ave, leading some greatness to the rear of it. It has its own well with 75-foot setbacks given from 21,253.16, and certainly it seems that the proposed septic system is within it. It leaves the greater part of 21,253.17 to 201 acres to be undeveloped, and I'm not seeing any problems here.
Thanks, Mike.
Thought I'd get there.
Thank you.
So, the scalloping that's around the area to be impacted, what does the scalloping mean?
Okay, so that's proposed tree line.
So you're gonna clear to that tree line?
To that, so that's not an existing tree line, that's the proposed tree, so those are gonna be the limits of clearing, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It should be a slightly darker line, is that what you're looking at? When he says the scalloping?
So you're gonna clear the steepest slopes on the northwestern side, near where the two lots, I think that's where the two lot lines meet. Is that right?
Yes.
And is this lot within 250 feet of the edge of Squam?
Portions of it are, yeah. I have a 250-foot shoreland zone line shown on that plan, which might help. It's kind of a larger. So this will require a shoreland permit
Right.
as well. But no sense pursuing that
Right.
cost and effort until it's further along in the process, I suppose.
The property that's on the lakeside, on the western side of Layton Avenue North, how far is their well from your proposed leach field?
It's over 75 feet. I would estimate it, I actually couldn't get a visual on it because there's probably, I would estimate 60 feet of woods from their edge of the property. So there's Layton Avenue, which is, I'm not sure what the width of the right of way is, but there's Layton Avenue, the start of their
Two-lane
property.
road.
And then I would estimate about 60 feet of woods before you get to their house and improvements. So that's why I could say with confidence that it exceeds the 75-foot requirement. But I can't give you a better answer than that.
So have you identified any invasive species on the property?
I actually didn't,
I didn't see any?
no.
That would be amazing.
No, a lot of beech regenerative growth, beech, oak, pine,
Where,
hemlock.
where do they propose to put the snow?
Where they'll probably plow it off the end of the driveway. I would
But
guess
not
that-
across the road, because that would be against the law.
Of course.
You're saying, I'm just looking, is it gonna be stored anywhere near any of these edges of water or over the edge of this proposed retaining wall or?
I would estimate that it would actually be near their well.
I was
See
just
where
gonna
the turnout on that is. That's where I would be putting it.
So they're gonna plow up the hill.
You can't plow into the right of way.
So they're gonna plow, yeah, but they're gonna plow up the hill, you know, all the other people on the street, they can't do, anyway, they're gonna plow up the hill and leave it at the top of the driveway.
Well, you're assuming the plower is coming from the road.
Well, if he's not coming from the road, then he's plowing down the hill.
Of course, 'cause he has the plow parked in his garage with the heat and a 9-foot wedge plow on a 350 Ford.
No, but you understand where I'm going with all that, so.
Yeah.
We could certainly clear some more trees for him to put the snow, but I'm not sure.
It's too late to joke with me about it. I'm just wondering if there's some place that, you know, it could.
Certainly, you would imagine that any rules that are put forth and that we don't put any outflow onto any properties, certainly it's well within the realm that all snow is dealt with and retained in a property is considered commercial or private. I would,
I'm just saying, it might be a recommendation of some sort to.
I guess I would like to see where you're gonna put the snow,
Snow storage area.
absolutely. I mean, you can't plow it toward the house, because you'll be plowing it into their proposed two-bedroom, and that's not a good idea. You don't wanna plow it onto the well, that wouldn't be a bad idea. I mean, you could store it, I guess, at the top of the proposed driveway, and, you know, the fun that I have when I do that at my house, because mine gets plowed to the top of the driveway, and then it just melts and creates a skating rink down the driveway. It's cool.
Is there a garage on the house?
Yeah, it's a drive-under garage.
nice heated, keep a nice 350. Wow.
Okay, so proposed
Assumes we
septic
get snow
and
anymore.
pump chamber.
I know,
tank and
we might be in a
sump
drought
pump.
next year,
Okay.
this year.
I still say 18 is a better location for the driveway, lot 18, but if they're not in favor of that, and indeed, yeah, anyway.
It's a little bit of a reach for what we have here at our,
Okay, so let's go back to the checklist. I'd like you to, there are some items on the checklist that were not provided, such as,
Page 11.
uh,
Page 11 is more important, I think.
what?
I'm sorry. I was just saying, I think page 11 is more important of the things that weren't provided. That was just my opinion, I'm sorry. It's page 10 and 11, but.
Yeah, and you might feel like I forgot my homework, but if you could kind of verbally walk through the items that
Yeah, that's what I
Look
was
at
gonna
mine.
are
do.
on the checklist, so I can't.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
what I was gonna
thank you.
do. So,
I'm gonna touch it, is that okay?
Ask.
Okay, so we have we're gonna have a porta potty, and it's gotta be at least 33 feet from any surface water bodies.
Okay.
So I would like to see, on the plan, I'd like to see where you propose putting that, because I think that's gonna be a little bit of a,
33 feet from the edge of wetland,
from the edge of water bodies.
water bodies, okay. So right after the,
Yeah, it says right on the checklist here.
okay.
It says, okay, surface waters, right. Are you planning to cut trees within 250? The answer is yes, and you're gonna do, you have to get a permit to do that. Hydrological impact. If you could, oh, that's interesting. If you could give us, I guess we need a diagram that shows where the hydrological impact would be.
In regards to stormwater runoff, because the way that everything's graded, the water should be going where it's going right now.
And through the TRC process, DPW did make that a condition or a recommendation that, making sure that runoff isn't coming down the driveway across Layton Ave and causing issues, because we've had some issues on Layton Ave
Right.
notoriously.
Yeah,
We also don't want it to come down the driveway and have a catch basin that will direct it over into the pond.
yeah, so the revised plan actually has a culvert going to the basin where the existing culvert is. I'm happy to pass this around.
That little one? The little basin, it's,
Yes, the sub-basin that's out of the wetland area. So,
adjacent to it.
it's adjacent to it, yeah.
If you got it on your drawing there.
I do, yeah.
Can you go back? I'm the fastest
So this
one.
was a request of DPW, was to put in a cross culvert
Right.
here. So we just have an excavation to capture any of the runoff that sheets on the south side of the proposed driveway, and then is directed to this small basin here. That invert is 1/10 above the existing culvert elevation. So it won't impact the pond surface elevation.
Right, but I think you need to do a calculation to see if this will handle that amount of water. That is a small basin. I
The
know-
existing culvert,
Yeah, that's small, and it's got like a 4-inch diameter PVC pipe that comes out of it.
right, so but the rainwater that falls onto this property right now is going, it's gonna be the same volume. There shouldn't be an increase.
Right, but the impervious component is going to be increased. So right now, if it falls, it's snowing outside, it's falling on the ground, it'll just go down into the ground, so it's,
But as you pointed out, the slopes here, they're greater than 35% in some areas. There's no real reduction. You actually you get less infiltration the steeper slope it is.
Mhm.
So because of the steepness of the slopes, there's really a negligible, if any, in the rainwater that falls is gonna be the same volume of water. We could certainly do a calculation.
Because of the rate that it flows off as steep. as-
Yes, there's
When it's
limited.
frozen in the middle of the winter.
Right.
I
So we
would
can
lo-
certainly do a calculation, but I think the number that you'll end up with will be like 3 digits, like it'll be like 0.0001 CFS increase, which we can do, but it gets to a point where we're, it's negligible, but we're happy to do it.
okay, so right now, the pond and this little catch basin do not overflow the road.
That's right.
And I assume that,
Well, I assume they don't overflow the road.
I'm sorry?
I assume they don't overflow the road. I shouldn't say that's correct. I've never,
yeah,
I don't,
but we don't want it to overflow the road.
right.
Okay, so if you could do that calculation, that would be helpful.
So, given the steepness, I'm gonna sound a little ignorant here, given the steepness and the impervious surfaces, were there any way to put in some either stormwater devices to help prevent those rapid flows, or? Because that was one of the things on the checklist that you didn't address, and I was just kind of curious about it.
Yeah, so it's a spatial concern. We can, but it would be more impact to buffer area or even wetland impact area. So, happy to balance it however we did, but we chose to reduce overall buffer surface area because the volume of water would be such a negligible increase.
That's what, I kind of understood that was the conversation you guys were just having, so I was just, yeah.
But again, we can incorporate something, but there's gonna be larger impact areas in order to do that. It's just a really tight
Yeah.
existing lot.
I don't know how, I guess I don't know how to make that balance.
So the area along where it says Layton Avenue North, that's scallop. So you're not gonna cut the trees between the lot line and the road,
Correct.
right? Because they're not yours.
Right.
The way you
But I
said.
mean, people
Right, the
would-
ones within the right of way, we have no right to
Right, so
remove it.
people, but, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that I've seen people cut them so that, oh, now I have a view of the lake. Oh, I wasn't supposed to do that? Oh, well, okay.
Throw another one.
So, anyway, okay. Okay, so, what do we want to do?
Seems like
Hey.
you made some recommendations.
Seems to me like if you guys made the recommendations that you feel or anything you need to be taken care of, it seems to me within the realm of it to be most reasonable. I'm not seeing where they're impacting so much other than the 75-foot setback for the well and their access, which of course, being as they're owned by the same person, they're not feeling any pressure there. And, you're looking at building on Layton Ave. These people have the right to use their property in the way they can. So I'd say with the best recommendations from this and any of the retentions, there's no water or sewer down there, right? We're looking at a well, there's no sewer because we're looking at a well and a septic system. Certainly that's all within the realm of what is state overlook.
So Ashley, you've been making notes on our recommendations as we've been going along?
Yeah, I was going to ask if you want to recap that. So I have the recommendation for location of snow storage to be indicated, and portable toilets being at least 33 feet from surface waters and to be shown on the plans, and a request for runoff calculation to be provided.
I'm sorry, did you get snow storage?
Yes.
Yep, that was
Yes,
the
you
first.
said right at the beginning.
That's, I was
Oh, good.
shifting, so I apologize, I was shifting my position.
What was that last item on there? I'm sorry.
The runoff
Runoff
calculation.
calc. Yep.
Which would be 0.
I just want to say that I am concerned that the driveway is so close to the pond with a retaining wall. It reminds me of another property.
And once again, is that a natural pond or is that a beaverish pond?
It's not a beaver. It's not a beaver pond. It looks to me like it was a natural pond, but
Yeah.
Spencer
I'd
could be
agree.
right that, it occurred when they put the road in.
Or is it dammed, and if there's a dam, is it controlled by a dam tax?
No dam.
All that.
No,
So it's not a dam
probably,
pond.
I would estimate the pond to be, I don't know, 2,500 square feet.
Right.
It's pretty small, but it certainly looks natural. But again, I think it's kind of partially, and this is me kind of hyperbolizing, but resultant of putting the road in and essentially limiting the down gradient flow of it.
How deep do you think it is?
Well, it's as deep
6
as
feet.
a frog pond. How deep is a frog pond? Knee deep, knee deep, knee deep.
I asked for that, sorry.
Sorry.
Now, every year that I walk by in the spring, I look and there are frogs and salamanders in the pond.
Oh,
So we don't know how deep the pond is?
I would guess 6 feet. You could see right down to the bottom. Looks pretty clean. But I'm just kind of throwing out a estimate.
All right, any other suggestions that we want to make?
with the current suggestions there.
I guess I would concur with Deb. I'm not thrilled, but I'd also can't see with just a little bit of that configuration, but I can't see that it's enough for us to be shooting off flares, so.
So the one thing I don't see is I don't see the edge, the eastern edge of the property. Where's the property line?
The eastern edge of the property is, we're gonna say it's probably right under where my stamp is. You see that?
Quite a ways.
Probably another 40 or 50 feet to the eastern side.
Okay,
Right in the middle of the construction sequence notes.
right, yeah, I see, okay. I would not want to see a housing development up there.
I don't know how you would, but, yeah.
No, I mean, I could see them, put in this driveway, now we have access. We got another, whatever it is, few hundred feet, we could build a couple of more houses back there and.
I think that would be shot down at other levels. Certainly here, we're looking at, something that's designed for single house units. I'm not seeing anything, and I could be ignorant here, beyond it, which is giving us access into larger tracts. Certainly, it looks like anything here, is what it is to be a single-family house with a garage on
Yeah.
Layton Ave.
And I didn't mean to be glib with that, so I apologize, but I should say that the Layton Avenue North, this is the only frontage that this lot has. It's surrounded by private,
Right, right.
property the rest of the
Right.
way around. And I believe there's a
So,
piece, there's
I wouldn't see that running amok.
a large piece to the northeast behind lot 16 that's actually, I want to say under some level of conservation easement, maybe, or conservation restriction. I'm sure the name in the abutters list might trigger somebody to know who they are, but I think they actually have frontage on, is it Meredith?
Yeah, Meredith Center
Meredith
Road.
Center
and-
Road, so it's
right.
it's a very large tract of land.
Yeah,
It's
it's-
not a conservation easement, but it very well could be under current use. I wouldn't be surprised because there's known vernal pools on that property.
I think it's owned by a church, right?
Yes.
Okay. Any other suggestions?
I just have one more question on the retaining wall by the driveway.
Yeah,
Is it going to come up higher than the driveway? So I mean,
No.
is it gonna be like a stone wall or?
yeah, it's really just intended to hold up the fill necessary for the driveway. It's not meant to be like a guardrail or curb. Because of that, we actually have to keep the height at 4 feet or less as it goes up. Otherwise, there's building code regulations regarding it. So that height is probably going to be I would guess like a precast concrete block. At 4 feet, it's very difficult to
On
do
the
like a
edge.
dry laid stone material has the structural capacity for a driveway. So I would imagine it's going to be some level of precast concrete block.
Do Do you wanna see a construction thing on the retaining wall? No, I'm just gonna do.
I wouldn't overly weight it. I would take them for what they have. Certainly, no one's going to put the effort into creating a project like this, and or I would hope not do it. And
Yeah, I mean, you just have to consider the service vehicles going up to your, your property, propane truck and whatever else. You need to have there needs to be a certain bearing capacity of those walls.
Right,
off the
but
shelf,
you
you
also
could-
don't wanna just have it drop off either.
With the retaining wall?
Right, or, so there's no lip on the retaining wall,
Right.
so that it's gonna be driveway and,
Right, well, we don't want to capture any runoff and concentrate it, right? And if we had some sort of wall that extended above the grade, it's gonna do that.
let's add salt, no salt use for that driveway either. Can we add that? Yeah, no salt on the driveway, if it's gonna flow right off.
Where's the propane tank gonna be?
I don't,
Maybe they're gonna use it all electric.
Okay,
But they
okay.
need to pump
All
the
right.
septic tank.
I just,
Oh, my God.
anything else?
No, I feel good. I think we should move it along.
Lisa?
Fine, thank you.
Deb? Okay, so we want to support the project?
With recommendations, suggestions, yes. That's, you asking, can I answer it that way?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Is that a motion?
I will move that we support the project with the recommendations as stated.
I'll second that.
Okay, any additional comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you for your presentation, and it does make a difference.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Because it's a group that cares.
Oh, yeah, I sit in
And-
I sit in your shoes on other nights of the week, so
There you go.
I hear you. Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
very much.
Okay. Gilman Street? Man, I'll tell you, I did it again. I did it again. This is like stupidity abounds. There it is.
Hi,
Hi, Dan, Higginson Land Services. So basically, we've got an existing lot that they already cleared into the buffer. So we want to go ahead and replant that with native trees and shrubs. And they want to build a house on the lot. The wetland that we're talking about is a drainage swale that comes down from up the street, installed numerous years ago. The house that they're looking to put in will have a 109 square foot impact into the wetland buffer. And then beyond that, an 873 square foot impact for lawn area for a backyard for the house, retained by a stone wall of sorts. There's two small swales that we're proposing, one to catch driveway flow and one to catch the gutters to slow it, the gutter drainage to slow it down a little bit before it gets even to that 50-foot line. It doesn't really show up on the topo because it's relatively flat, but it's kind of dished out in the within the 50-foot buffer, so water kind of concentrates there anyway. It doesn't just sheet flow straight into the drainage swale. There's a little bit of an uphill slope at the edge of the drainage swale. So it's it's a relatively small lot. The house they're proposing is 28 by 36 with a 24 garage. Pretty typical for what you see in that neighborhood.
where is Gilman Street?
It's off of
Guilford Ave. Is it Guilford Ave?
Yeah, Guilford Ave.
It
Probably,
goes-
you go down, if you turn on Guilford Ave from this end, you go up the street, half a mile-ish, something,
Right behind the high school?
Is it a left or right?
it's a left.
The left.
As you head east, it's a left.
And it, and so it kind of goes up, right?
Yep, just, yeah, before it goes up the hill. There's a brook that crosses, or that drainage swale that crosses, in front of it.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
Are we okay to ask questions?
Sure.
Is there a reason why you can't move the garage closer to be in line with the front of the house? Then pull it out of the wetland a little bit?
We could, generally, just for aesthetic purposes, when you see a house, the garage is set back from it.
Yeah,
But if
but
that-
you're impacting a
Yeah,
wetland.
no,
so-
no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, no, we could do that, so it's set back 4 feet, so we could pull it up, we could pull it forward. As it is right now, you know, we're pretty tight on the front lot line, so we could do that to,
What is the setback on the front lot line?
it is 25.
And that's reflected by the setback line.
So, you're saying, so this existing tree line is what they haven't cut,
Correct.
and all these other trees are what you're looking to
Yes.
put in. Do we have a plant list?
Yep, so I have high bush blueberry, red osier dogwood, and red maple, all wetland species. I did put in a note or equal, so if they wanted to put in, you know, something, some other tree or shrub that's a facultative wetland plant, that, you know, they could do that, they wouldn't be held to this. New England wetland plants out of Amherst, Massachusetts readily supplies all these, so they're pretty easy to get, but I didn't want to have to hold their feet to the fire for just these plants if for some reason they weren't available.
I must be blind, I'm not seeing the planting list. Is it on the
Bottom
construction?
left-hand corner,
Bottom left.
so, yep.
Oh, I'm sorry, there you go.
Yep, so the smaller, darker circles are the high bush blueberry, the
Gotcha,
cloud-looking ones would be the red maple, and then the dogwood would be the other.
thank you.
The other two attachments, other than the plan, are photos of the site now that
Right.
that cutting had been conducted. So just for reference of what is currently there.
The existing trees are mostly silver maple, I believe. Going from memory when I was there, but I'm pretty sure that that's what was down there. And they typically grow on the side of streams and such because the helicopters, I forget their technical name, are carried by water flow. So then they'll land on the sides of streams and such.
The seeds?
So I'm just looking at your planting schedule. So these are the purchase sizes of 1 to 2 feet, 2 to 3 feet. So I'm just trying to imagine your canopies and how much cover you're actually gonna get from those.
So the
And then your I'm sorry, go ahead.
so the trees were cut, the stumps are all there, it hasn't been stumped and such, so there's still, as far as, you know, structural integrity of the ground, you know, there's no erosion, issues or anything like that, and it is kind of dished out. So when I first started, at the site, I haven't seen the site without snow, we had that 4 foot, 3 or however many feet you guys got up here, so that was the first time I was ever on the site. So it was pretty hard to get a feel for what was down there. And then when I went back, it looks like it was you know, it was a lot of smaller trees, and there was a fair amount of growth under the canopy, just natural shrubs and things like that. I didn't see any invasives, but again, with the snow cover, it was hard to.
You're gonna get them now.
What's that?
Now that that's been completely clear cut, you're gonna get them now, and they're gonna compete with what you're planting, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's, I guess, be that as it may. But there's a fair amount of growth still in the area of small plants and such that, you know, will come back.
Where is Gilman Street again?
It's off Guilford Avenue, it's one of the side streets, before you get up to the crest of like Ridgewood and all that, it's down in that little between Highland and Ridgewood.
All right, thank you.
Behind the high school? Up past the high school?
I don't
high
remember
school's
seeing
not-
the
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And
I
go
don't
for it.
remember seeing the high school right, like, in the locus of the site.
The high school's more like Isabel Street and down before, like
It's
Moral,
here.
because Moral splits.
Gilman's a small.
Oh, it's
Up
a
above.
little one,
Yeah,
it's
it's a
a
small
little
moving street, we're
one.
on the inside of it.
Yeah,
So where on Gilman is this?
It's gonna be, if you turn off of Guilford, it's the, there's a house on the corner and then this lot.
so I would tell you right now,
And we-
Oh, I see, there's nothing there, 42?
Yes, vacant.
All right,
And
got it.
where's this stream? Is there a stream back there?
Not right in there, yes,
drainage.
yes,
It's drainage,
drainage to the back corner of it.
yeah, through the back corner of the lot.
Is that, does that tie in with like Brook Street and
I
go
don't
down, and
know.
go down to, I wonder if it goes into the Jewett Brook system?
I think so.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I think it does.
So the back corner, let me see if, the back
Of the
corner.
lot or of the building?
Yeah, you
of
see
the-
it here.
Of the lot,
Yes.
there's nothing there.
It's, kinda overtaken by the neighbors. There's some trees back there and then, their lawns kinda come down. There's a little bit of a stone wall, and then one of the neighbors has a shed over there. But on our portion of it, there's several larger trees that have canopy that goes over the stream itself, because, you know, they're bigger and the tops are large. I didn't do any work over on that side.
Okay.
Because I figured the impacts were all coming from this side. If you need to
Okay.
see detail over there, we certainly could provide that.
Nope.
But on the back side of that drainage, there's a fair amount of houses from the front on the next street over. And they all basically have open backyards and they're sloping down towards the drainage, so it's kind of the situation that you want to avoid.
What's the remaining buffer between what hasn't been cut and the,
At the narrowest point, probably in the 8 to 10 foot range. At the widest point, maybe 15. It's pretty tight. And that canopy line is kind of there's larger trees and smaller trees, so it's kind of a happy medium of the two. The canopy comes out further, but I kind of went with where the average of the stems and canopy were.
right, well, I was looking at, oops, made that picture so big. So, Mr. Chair, I think we've already made one concern is I'd like to pull that garage so it's flush with the house.
Okay.
Or even a little in front of the house.
Well-
Gives you a little privacy.
Well, there's not room to pull it.
Not room, okay.
Yeah, I'm 1.4 feet off the building setback right now,
Oh, yeah.
with the front of the house. I
Yeah.
like your thought.
If there was more, but he'd show up in front of ZBA and I'd ask all the questions.
Yeah, and I mean, at that point too, we're 25 feet to the, I guess to the right of way, but in backing a vehicle out and, safe turning
Gotcha.
radius and
Yeah.
so on and so forth, I guess that's another reason that you want to set it back versus having it front, flush so that you have room if it's a bigger vehicle to get out of the driveway.
Well, you're getting to my question, is this a one-car garage or two?
24.
Well, I
Your
don't have a
average, your
garage,
average
so.
size, your average size 2-bay garage.
If you made it a one-bay and brought it flush with the house, you're almost out of the way.
Yeah, but I would think you'd have to look right into the new school stuff and you're gonna have two Escalades parked next to each other.
A one-bay garage is, I mean, you don't really see it too often. It's not, it's just,
Doesn't happen.
it just doesn't happen.
It's not the new world stuff. And I would suggest that as we come up here, you might find more stuff coming to planning that would make it so that this was a reasonable prospect, density-wise.
Well,
It-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
If you look at the housing stock, I mean, in this town, certainly a lot of large houses going in. This is more of a workforce, affordable, first-time home buyer, things that you don't really see in town a lot. And, having a garage attached to a house like that, it's a pretty standard thing that you see around. So, I mean, in all reality, with the price of houses and what have you, and things that young people can afford, I mean, this is right in that ballpark. So it's,
So like, what is the price that young people?
I don't know what, I haven't seen any architecturals. I don't know if they're proposing a 1-story, 2-story. I have no idea on that. But the 26, 2836, footprint, it's relatively small.
So $250,000 would be a
I have no idea.
reasonable.
I'm from Henniker, so real estate.
From where at Henniker?
Yeah, so real estate is far different down there than here. I have absolutely no idea what a value would be.
It's gonna be
But I would give you that
It's
the
gonna be at least
recent,
280 at least.
right, which is fine,
Yep. For new
right?
build.
Because you still need to utilize the properties that you do have.
Yeah.
So the other thing I would suggest is when you do your plantings, I don't know if you want to increase, I know did you talk about lawn area? You've got this sort of,
So the circle areas is where a lawn would be.
so I would say you might want to concentrate more planting along the existing tree line
Sure.
and do some shorter stuff up closer to the house.
Yep.
Still, you get some lawn. I'm just trying to protect that buffer,
Yep.
and also, from the perspective of looking at those pictures, you do get screening.
Yeah, no, you're
some
absolutely right.
screening
Yep.
of the backyards of other people.
Yep, yeah, I can reorganize those so that we have the, like the maples in the back and then some dogwoods and then blueberry. So it kind of like staggers as they come from
More of a
back to
feathered
front.
field.
Yeah,
feathered
no,
look or
absolutely,
something.
yeah, I spoke with Ashley about it, I said, do you have a standard that you're looking for? So she said, not particularly, so I kind of went with the feel of what DES likes for shoreland, and kind of just use that to, what I do for that type of thing. They're not too picky about how you put plants in and such, but that makes
Nor
perfect
should
sense
they
to me.
be where you place them.
Yeah. That's not a problem.
I still, and I'm not bringing this up for an argument, but I am going to, I guess, make a philosophical statement that you brought us a plan that's asking to encroach upon restrictions that we felt were important to put in place. You have agreed to move, to make some adjustment, but I would say, could you make it a one-car garage? I understand their concern, my colleagues' concern about, that's not what people expect these days, but I also am saying, well, I don't know that we necessarily expect people to have to give in to what people expect to make something non-conforming. And I'm saying, I'm just making it as a philosophical
Yep.
statement that, I think the more that we point these things out to a developer such as yourself, that maybe you consider those things.
Sure.
And I would say that to my fellow colleagues, I live on Valley Street, which was built in 1960. I don't have a garage. My neighbors all have one-car garages. And people get along just fine, or they don't have a garage at all, and they park outside.
But certainly I would call upon it that we find within, and I'll call planning here, finds this in front of them that we have to create storage. So if the people don't have a spot to store their Subaru and their Ford F-350 and the
V-plow,
snowmobile,
Diesel.
Diesel, easy now. I drive a dump truck, leave me alone. So what I'm saying here is, other than that, and this is another concern, one beyond, is what comes up in planning is you have to create storage. And so when you create storage, you're going, look, some other place in town to use more land. So certainly in this, I'm going to give it up right now. I see what it is. The impact is minimal, and covering all the considerations you might have, I certainly would support this in the fact that it gives us one more piece of what is undeveloped property in a town which is suffering a cataclysmic, as we were told,
It's a good word.
lack
housing
of
shortage.
housing. And so
Affordable
here I see it as something that could be a benefit.
They're not gonna live in the garage.
Circling back to the one-bay garage, so if we had a one-bay garage there, you still, you're gonna have two cars. So if you park one car in the garage, and then the other one's staggered back towards the road, because we don't wanna put parking in the buffer if we don't want a garage there, so now you gotta back out your car, and then you have two cars, side by side, where in order to turn, you have to come out of the garage, buy the second car, and at that point, you're creeping up on being in the road before you're making your swing. to get out.
Damn it, somebody better build me a garage.
I need a garage.
What is the,
I want it, sister. I want it. I need a big one.
I'm sure there's plenty of people that'd be more than happy to build you a garage.
No, I'm
But-
just saying, that's, it's not to me, it's not a necessity, and that's, and maintaining, we put in these rules for a reason. You've sat there, you've heard why we maybe made some waivers, but we put in these rules for a reason, and I don't see why we have to make an exception again here, given this particular thing. And I'm not, and that this doesn't weigh against you, but I'm already in my mind going, why did they clear cut it like that and get themselves in
Well,
trouble?
the-
I'm not making it against you, because I'm separating.
That was an oversight.
He
Those
just draws
pictures are not
pictures.
good.
I sit on the board, planning board in Hennecker, and so I know what you all go through, but so there's boards for a reason, there's conditional use permits for a reason, so everything has to be weighed individually on that site, not the, gray areas and so on. You're well aware of that. It's easy to play devil's advocate. I get where you're coming from. I do it in my mind all the time. But in the grand scheme of things, made a mistake and cut it. We're looking to replant it. That's on us. It is what it is. We're looking to have, the best use of this land, a relatively affordable house as comparison to everything else that's around. And, with a new house, a new purchase price, a garage is a relatively standard thing. And then having a little bit of flat area in the back, for a yard is, it's, I mean, what kid, doesn't want a yard?
Sure, and I'm not opposed to that.
And this site, it's not shooting straight into the water, it's kind of dished, or straight into the wetland, it's kind of dished, so anything's gonna get slowed down or infiltrated before it gets to the water, and then we're trying to, treat the drainage, as best we can to make it all kind of work. We didn't go over the top with some elaborate engineered drainage plan, but I mean, this is gonna work just fine for the site.
Yeah, no, I'm not beating up on you about that, so.
so you're-
And I would say here, right, Laconia generates plenty of high-end housing. We can go down and get near any of our,
Argument there.
right, we can go down and get stuff that no one in this room who's working can afford. Easy.
Yeah.
And it generates a lot of Section 8 housing, which isn't necessarily the best for building our community for reasons we can discuss in other spots. But what we have here is a need for some mid-housing, and this here is a lot that is currently undeveloped. Certainly, we see that it has some challenges here, but I don't feel in any way that it should negate the development of this for a single-family home, being as it's in that zone. And so whether, what it is, they look like they're paying attention to it. You can't fight every little corner of every little swampy wetland. Certainly, at some point, you need to generate houses, places for people to live, people to move in here, to grow our community. Seriously.
Mike, I'm not arguing that. I guess the reason why I'm taking the energy to point out these things is so that they're verbalized, they may be internalized, and at some point, we have, maybe next time this gentleman comes up against something like this, he might ask the homeowner, would you mind if we made the garage flush with the front of the house, or maybe we could do this a little bit. It's, just to not voice the concerns doesn't help anybody, in my mind. I
Correct.
am not
And
saying,
I'm always one for full discussion,
so I'm not saying,
as by any board that I work on.
Right.
I will never come back here again and ask for the same thing you told me no to once. Absolutely not. I'll tell the next person, hey, I already tried that, and they were like, not happening. So what else are we gonna do?
So what I'm saying to you, Mike, is I very much respect and agree with you about needing to balance residential needs and our concerns, so.
I think there's another issue, and that is, we have, wetland buffer that has been cut, and they're proposing to replant it. And I think, that's something I would like to support, when we have somebody comes in versus, I'm buying this lot, it's already been cut, I didn't cut it, I'm gonna leave it the way it is. And that's not what they're doing. They're coming in, they're saying, we're gonna replant it, we're gonna use appropriate species. And, and I think that there's a lot to be said for that.
Absolutely, I agree.
Somebody else made a mistake and I'm gonna try to correct it,
Yep.
so.
I agree.
So your fence has taken quite a hit with that snow, I think.
The silt fence?
Yeah.
We'll certainly
Can we
tune that
put
up.
some
That's-
silt sock instead?
Sure.
Okay,
How about we put the silt sock against the silt fence?
Yes.
better yet.
Ooh, double extra, super
Absolutely.
deluxe.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Suggestions? Do we have a list of suggestions?
Yep, I had, did we wanna make, okay, the garage is going to be in line with the house, is a recommendation,
In the front, yeah.
right?
I don't necessarily feel that we need to press that upon them. If you're getting a variance of, it may be aesthetics, it may be.
Well, that was something that I was kind of thinking of in my mind. It was like, all right, you guys really want it flush to get it out.
Right,
Okay,
because we
but-
went through this just last night, and my chair denied it, but still here I see that they have taken into a thought process.
From an aesthetics and architectural standpoint of, driving down the road, when you see the house with the garage that's set back, I mean, classic New England, it looks, a lot better than if it's just a straight, like, row house looking, situation. I'm, whatever you folks want to do is fine, but the aesthetics of it, to me, looks a lot better, staggered. So is that worth 4 feet of the buffer? Your decision.
Well, and I'm not willing to concede on that, because I think there has to be some consideration for the fact that you're cutting into the wetland buffer.
By a 10 by 10, 10 by 10 is 100 square feet, right? So.
Yes, it
Size
is.
of this
Yeah.
island we have
Right,
going
so
on
the
here.
size of this, if they were trouncing on it heavily,
I'm sorry, she asked me
I'm
a
sorry.
question. No, she asked me a question.
Sorry.
sorry. I guess I'm going to support this and I'm hungry, so.
Okay,
So she needs to read the
yeah,
suggestions.
I was just gonna ask her to do that.
Okay, so moving the garage in line with the front of the house, the plantings along the tree line in the rear, and recommending silt sock adjacent to the silt fencing.
I would say that you need to expand a little bit on the concept of the planting trees, creating more of a more natural sort of feathering of large trees in the back, medium trees, and then the shrubs, and
I got you.
more of a field. Well, I'm
Yeah,
saying for her
I was
notes.
like jotting down when you had
Okay.
made the suggestion initially, so I didn't catch the
That's
verbiage
fine, that's fine.
exactly at that moment, so I
Okay.
was
Yeah.
going to go back to it in the minutes
Okay,
anyways.
thanks.
But thank you
Okay.
for reiterating that. Okay, so I have those three.
Okay, so I have another idea. Can you move the proposed house closer to the building setback line?
So I can, and the reason that I gave it a little bit more is because the porch on the abutting house is literally on the lot line. So there really isn't the 10-foot setback on the neighboring side because they're right on it. So if they were, set back 10 feet, I'd feel more comfortable moving it over. But right now, we're in like the 20-foot range from porch to house. So it's, in an effort to create a little bit of a gap there because the neighboring house just is so close to the lot line.
So, Ashley, actually, I think we need to, talking about moving the garage in line with the front of the house, the 24 by 24 garage, so that the dimensions stay the same.
But I think it's far
not- yeah,
beyond
it's-
us to
Wait a
be
minute, wait a
able to
minute.
place those structures on this here. Once we give our recommendations, which is fine, but I don't feel we should be able to place the structures of that. I think that, if it's that much, goes before planning.
If I may just say that Conservation Commission is advisory. So
Yeah.
while they can make conditions and recommendations and their support is valuable, ultimately the planning board has the decision. So if, depending on how you wanna amend your plan or not amend your plan, you can do so accordingly.
Right.
Okay.
And my concern is to conserve as much of our intent for a wetlands buffer as we possibly can and still balance the desire of the applicant to build.
Okay, and what I'm saying is, if you could move, I understand that the guy's porch is right there. If you could shift the house, the entire structure, the house and the garage, to the right, and I don't know what direction that is, but to the right.
That's where the neighbor's porch is.
Oh, I understand that, but in terms of reducing the impact on the wetland, which is what Lisa's trying to accomplish, versus keeping the garage the same size and set back from the house, that I could see as an option, moving it that way. But, you know, I don't, you know, the neighbor's porch is there, and, you know, if, is the neighbor's porch in conformance with the city regulations? Because if it's not, tell him to cut part of his porch off.
Well, they can't anymore because all of that comes from the way stuff has been built before.
So,
Most of the houses on this street have been built in the 80s or before the 80s, so they've been here and they've been having maintained backyards, they've had sheds and all of that, right up to the water line on
Right.
some of these properties.
So it's unreasonable to think that you can go and take a set of standards that you have now and make everybody go out and conform. So the best we can do is on any new stuff, and really at 109 square feet of impact, I'm not feeling that all the salamanders aren't gonna have a place to go. And it's cold, but I'm feeling that.
And I'm not arguing about that, Mike, I'm arguing about the intent of why we set this, and every single one we've had tonight has been, let's waive it, let's waive it, let's waive it.
I concur, and it irks me deeply.
so we're asking you to waive it, but we're also trying to do something with the treatment of the sheet flow prior to even getting to the buffer. So I mean, it's kind of we're trying to do the best we can to give you guys something, because we know that we're asking for something.
Right.
As I look at the shifting the house, it's the way the slope is, I'm seeing just a lot of other things that I'm wondering about, like drainage around. I don't want to force it onto the neighbor's property and things of that nature. Fire code, when you start getting buildings really close together, I know that's a porch, it's not
Okay.
living space.
Okay.
But I have a lot of questions, so I'm not comfortable saying, yeah, we can slide that. I don't.
No, I was just
Yeah.
making a suggestion
Sure,
that
yep.
we look at that as an alternative, and if it's, you know,
I think that there's probably a little bit too much there to be able to slide it over.
okay.
I'll make a motion that we support the plan with our recommendations.
Second.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Hold on 1 second. Sorry, let me just write that down. So, you guys are not recommending that the structure is moving towards the property on the right, but you are recommending moving the garage forward still? Or are we slicing the garage?
I seconded assuming we were moving the garage
Okay.
forward. And the garage is going to stay at the same dimensions.
Okay.
Okay. So, any additional discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay.
I thought you said you were going to support it.
I do support it, but I don't think you need to move the garage.
That's what I'm objecting to.
Jeez, God, Lord, would you give me a break
I mean, I was
here?
like, we're dumping
I
it.
do support it. I'm all about it. You can't get anybody on top of the table.
Okay.
Let me throw a loop there.
Still got the majority.
Thank you, thank you.
What I might do is put down, when I do the memo, just a breakdown, and on that bullet of the recommendation, I'll
Same
say
size.
that there is a vote, because if I say like 3 voted to support and 1 voted against, just to be clear, you do support.
But I do
support
support the
that,
whole
you just don't
project
Not that
in
one.
fact,
Okay.
but.
That one
So
element.
we'll make that
We'll
clear
make sure that we
and
can,
I'll-
it doesn't
I'll
change. We're
remember.
gonna get that F-350 red with the plow.
Oh, my God.
Hey, I'm the GMC, leave me alone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry
Oh
to
my
keep
God.
you late.
Oh, my God. You can't make this up. I mean,
You know,
really.
I have Reese's peanut butter cups or potato chips if you really want some.
And truly, I get it, I
think
get it,
that-
I really get it, you know what I
was
mean?
late.
Because you started with the first one, and I'm
I
like,
went to
wait.
10:30 last night on ZBA,
Okay.
and it gets right down into these same
wonder your
little
wife didn't want you
things,
to
and
go.
so I'm getting it.
Okay, so
Let's not do anything else.
it is almost 8:15. And
Lord.
we still have half the agenda to go. So, I guess the question is,
I propose that we accept the minutes and defer the rest.
Second.
I vote yes.
okay, all in favor, any more discussion?
I have a question for Ashley.
Hang on, who
wait a
seconded
minute.
the minutes? I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, did we do the minutes? I thought I was.
No, we
I
didn't.
thought you just motioned.
I was just changing the agenda.
Don't speak out loud.
All right.
I
Sorry.
thought you were moving the minutes.
I thought you moved to accept it.
Okay,
Yeah, that's
I
what I
do, now I do. I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes
Second.
Okay,
from,
Viv,
any more discussion on the minutes?
No,
you had a question for Ashley, though.
not about the minutes.
All right.
Okay, we're doing this in order. Any more discussion on the minutes? Okay, all in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Phew, praise the Lord. Okay,
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
okay.
If we are going to indeed defer the rest of this agenda, I just wanted to ask Ashley, was there anything on any of the items, so like Pearly Pond timeline or any of that other stuff that she needed us to discuss?
I don't think anything is immediate. I guess the one pressing thing is because the next meeting wouldn't be until February 3rd. So the Squam Watershed Management Plan, under that item 5.2, there's a meeting, the Squam Watershed meeting with the various conservation commissions of the watershed. They're gonna be consulting on their new plan that they recently got funding for. And that is on February 2nd and that is at 5 p.m. It's a Zoom meeting. That PDF contains the information, so if you'd like to go, please go. There's also the planning board meeting public hearing that same night at 6 p.m. for the wetland and shoreland ordinances that you guys have reviewed and supported.
And that's
There's a little
February
bit of a
what?
conflict.
There's February what?
Second.
Second.
February 2nd. So there's a little bit of a conflict on the timing. I'm not sure. I know he talked about going to one and hopping to the other.
Did they change the
Or,
time?
6:30 p.m., sorry about
Okay.
that. 6:30 p.m. for the, planning board meeting.
So
Thank you.
5 p.m. for the Zoom meeting and 6:30 for the,
Planning board meeting, the
Yeah.
public hearing on that.
Okay, so let me talk about the Squam Watershed Network meeting. The purpose of that meeting is to discuss the watershed management plan with all of the conservation easements in the watershed that front on the lake. But I think we've also invited the other two, Guilford and New Hampton, to also be there. And this is so that everybody knows what's going on, so everybody can pitch in and help, because this is a big undertaking, to say the least.
Did this get forwarded to us, the Zoom link? Did it get forwarded to all of us?
Yes, it should
Yeah.
have been. And it's also, if you go back and you just click this agenda and you click the link, it'll pop up the same.
Thank you.
Because it's an email.
Okay, so let me just quickly, Pearly Pond, we have a schedule that Ashley put together, and I don't think we need to do anything about that now. We can wait until the next meeting in February. The community assistance application, we will have the meeting, Ashley and I will have that meeting a Zoom meeting, and we can report back of what they're finding, and the purpose of that is to find out what it would cost and approaches that we could take with the NRI update. Because the NRI update, I've talked to a couple of municipalities that updated theirs. Ashley has talked to them, and we're looking for ways that we can cobble together some funds to do that, so we can offset the cost to the city. So that's, you know, in a nutshell, that's what's going on
If I
there.
may, Dean, so we're just having a preliminary discussion with Taking Action for Wildlife. It's UNH Cooperative Extension, NHACC, and Fish and Game. And they offer free, essentially consulting on NRIs, and Dean and I and other Dean are going to have a discussion with Amanda Stone, who works with UNH Cooperative Extension, and next week, just to have preliminary discussion about, you know, what our goals are, and then that'll likely progress into having a couple meetings with the commission as a whole, and I know she's using a Zoom platform, so that this may turn into a Zoom hybrid thing, so if people want to come in on the iPad and use Zoom versus using Zoom from home, to have that discussion with her about the NRI moving forward. So there's more to come on that.
Right, because the preliminary cost of updating NRI, they're done in two phases. The first phase will cost about $5,000, and the second phase will cost $20,000.
And that's one
Ballpark.
consultant, so we just wanna we wanna have a clear direction on what exactly we're looking for, what is necessary. Is this gonna be a multiple phase or one phase? Where can we get the funding? And get a good picture on that, and it's best to get like a outsider party versus going right to consultants who are probably more likely to say, oh, you definitely need this, and it's going to be $20,000. Not saying that they're all looking for money, but to have an entity that's free consulting that can give us advice is,
Right.
I think, very helpful. So,
Yeah, that sounds good.
and that's really it. There's nothing else that's really pertinent. No DES applications. We do have, I know we're all trying to get out of here, but there is interest on Conservation Commission from 2 outside residents. So more to come on that.
What do you mean outside?
Potential alternate members. I know.
I mean, but they live in the community and have stake in it.
Yes. Oh yeah, they have to be
It
around.
has to be.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I know someone submitted an application, right now that's remaining confidential. They've requested not to release their information to the public. So, they would be interviewed February 8th, the same time as Marnie for her reappointment. They did request that they might potentially be a full-time member or an alternate position, so I don't know how that's going to play out in terms of like city council doing their interviews. And Marnie has an open position that's being reappointed, but more to come on that.
So people want to apply, but they don't want to tell us their names?
They applied, and they didn't want the application to be public. I don't know. I asked Nancy, like, before she had left for the evening, like, is their name public? And she said she wasn't sure, so I didn't get a
So,
chance to.
well, I'm curious, and because it's been a bit, because I just walked in to meet you guys one day, right? I seriously just walked through the door before you guys accepted that I could play, right? And so I don't know that there was an application or that information was hidden, or
You can submit an application online, and that's what they did. They submitted an application, just requested in the it's a question on whether or not, it's like a yes, no, do
Yeah.
you want this to be public? And they had said no. So I did
Yeah.
speak with them, and I asked them if I told them, hey, by the way, tonight we're having a meeting, if you wanna join. They said they had another thing at that time, it was a last minute thing. So they weren't able to make tonight's meeting.
but do you think they're real?
Yes, it's a real human. I did tell them that, obviously, if we do have a February 3rd meeting, it would be good for them to come in to the commission and meet
So-
and watch a meeting before going to the city council. but,
Yeah, well, I have a question about that.
yeah.
Why does city council get to meet them before we do? I mean, they're the person that, we're not,
Yeah, what's wrong with us?
no, but
Put
I'm,
that in the, I don't know what it takes when they do
Yes.
these interviews, but I would think that one of the questions is, have you been to a meeting or met the board? I'm not sure. I know many people start out by coming and sitting in as an audience member. I can't speak to why they have not done that, and I was certainly surprised myself, and I was like, oh, I'm surprised we got an application in, because no one had come to the meeting, but.
So what if we were to invite them to the meeting on the 3rd?
I did inform them of the meeting on the 3rd, and I said that meeting is scheduled. You guys are meeting on an as-needed basis, so when there's an application, you're meeting just based off COVID and everything. So that meeting is canceled, that'll be publicly noticed as well. I didn't wanna say, plan for February 3rd, and it may or may not be canceled.
And
Well,
you said they're meeting.
We certainly look forward to meeting new people.
Well, Stacy, how does the planning board, do you get to meet the people who are applying before
No.
the
No.
city
No,
council?
No.
it's, yeah.
No, my
No.
friend did come. I was gonna introduce her, but she did flee.
Uh-oh, we scared her.
So I quickly messaged her. I said, I was gonna introduce you.
Okay, so you know one of the applicants?
Yes.
Okay.
One of the, so,
Okay.
the contact Stacy knows has not yet submitted an application. The other person, there's another person who has not come to the board, but has submitted an application. And there's three alternate positions.
I was gonna
Wes-
say,
Wes
yeah.
dominates one of those, and then there's 2 vacant alternate positions right now, and Marnie is going for her full position reappointment.
oh, good.
So,
I don't see.
So we
Wes
have room for both of
dominating.
them if they're,
Oh, sure.
I just wanted to let you guys
Because
know
of,
what was going
because
on.
of our vote for the structure in which we allowed a bit more than a bit less.
right.
Okay,
I know, you hope that people are joining for the right reason.
well, I just, there's nothing, and it doesn't matter.
I'll call Scott Myers and ask him if we can at least see
Oh,
a
having that,
resume or meet them before, I mean,
sure. Why would
Where's
it
the-
be,
where's the
why
good
would
deal
it
to say
be that they would just say, all right, here's one for you, without coming to meet us, having discussion,
'Cause that's
Tea,
the
as
way
it
it's
were.
written. Yeah, that's the way it's
right?
written.
And
yeah.
I'm with you on that. See, I can see some value in that.
in what?
Instead of just having them take an application, go before, the, council without us vetting them or even knowing who they were or what.
Well, you know what, the other thing, we can go to that meeting on the 8th.
Oh, there you go, we can ask questions. I love questions.
I don't know, Ken.
Why not? You can go to the city
Oh,
council
she
meetings,
wants
they're
to come
public.
to the next meeting.
Oh,
What?
good,
So you guys were not,
that's
You
very,
weren't too
guys weren't
intimidating.
that scary.
right.
Okay, all right, so anybody want to make another motion?
Well,
I do.
Does Stacy have anything to say? Since she's here?
Planning boards.
Little interesting note, I will make it quick. 570 Union Ave, you know that area right next to Domino's?
Yeah. Oh, same side?
Yes.
All right, up on the hill?
No, Domino's is across the.
Domino's is like on the opposite side
So,
from.
Okay, okay,
Think
got
of-
it, I forgot, switch,
Okay,
all right.
so that is Canton Chevrolet's.
Yeah,
Their shoreland permit is pending. They're gonna park brand new cars there. So, with that said, they said no trees.
which they said
For
before,
obvious
which they
reasons.
said before,
They said no what?
trees.
Trees.
They're not
So-
gonna cut any, or they don't want any trees?
They are not going to plant any. They did say that they will plant, short, bushes.
Bushes.
Because these are brand new cars and you don't want trees being dirty all over them.
Right.
They're gonna replicate the concrete block on the other side, for consistency from the WOW trail.
Are they cutting trees, though?
There's nothing
There's nothing
there.
there.
Nothing
was a
There's
there.
gonna be a ton of fill, put in there, so at least it's not
2
gonna be
tons.
the most. Maybe 3. So, at least there will be something there instead of a giant hole.
Yeah.
But it's just
Is that where the building was torn down?
probably.
The barn
Yes.
building, the
The
barn
big
building.
brown one?
Yeah, it's the big
Sure.
barn building.
And you know what, some of that is, some of the people who develop that stuff say that it is better suited for, open sales like that. And this is from the developers, as opposed to trying to keep that stuffed into, single family or, multifamily housing. So, in it, it may be, beneficial for the neighborhood like that,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, the only thing about that, I mean, I'm just from the point of view of like being a heat source and all that, but that's all right, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you.
Well, I mean, the fact that they have to get a shoreline permit, all I could think of was, all somebody needs to do is puncture an oil tank or something, or
That's
gas.
already there, it's already in the bottom, it's
And
already
boom.
in the bottom of the river there, it's part of the super fun cleanup site, don't worry about it. Good to go.
So, and I was talking to my husband about it, and he just looked at me and goes, they're brand new cars. I said, I'm sorry, but security is not gonna be that, they'll have a camera, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It's awfully close to the lake, but
But it isn't a coal house.
Sure.
Or a,
exactly, yes, it could be
Recycle.
way worse.
The wild trail's in between though, right?
Right,
It is.
yeah.
Okay.
So if a car got away, it would go over the retaining wall and end in the railroad track before it could hit the lake.
Oh, that's good, okay.
Oh, okay, good, okay. Well, that's,
The homeless people.
they'd
that's
have
an
per-
optimistic view. Okay, Ashley.
Yeah, just one other thing. So I caught wind of this today. I had my eyes on it late last year, waiting to see when they were going to announce it, because last year, I think this was in February. But the New Hampshire Association of Natural Resource Scientists, the NANNERS, I always think bananas.
Bananas, wow.
The NANNERS conference, their annual conference is this Friday and next Friday. It's half days. It's online, and I went last year, and it was really helpful. I thought it was great. I'm a little sad that it's not it won't really be networking, but it's really cool to meet other professionals that are interested in nature. And they're covering topics anywhere from the wildlife studies in New Hampshire. There's like a requirement now from AOT that you have to get wildlife studies done as part of your AOT permit, whereas before you could just use the NHB data check tool for your applications. So they're gonna be covering that, some ethics. They had a really good, and I think this might be the same person, law. He does a law, speech, and ethics of natural resource scientists, and then wetland functional assessments and soils. So if anyone wants to go, since it is such a tight turnaround with it starting Friday, you would have to pay and register yourself, but then you could let me know, send me an invoice, and I could get that processed for the reimbursement. It is $65 a person, because we are not members. You have to be in
For
order
both
to-
sessions, 65?
Yep, for both sessions total. The first session this Friday is 8:30 to 12:30. Next Friday it's 9 to noon. So they're quick little sessions, and if you have any interest, just you can register, send me an invoice. But I will be going, so I'm happy to report back on how it goes. as
So
well.
it's $65 per session or
$65 per person for the entire,
For the 2 days.
yeah,
for 2 days?
yep,
Okay,
one-time fee.
okay. Okay,
That's it.
so if you can send out an email with that in there?
Yep, I'll send
Please.
that out tomorrow. I just got it today. Luke had sent it to me.
Okay,
He's
thanks,
a member on there.
thanks.
Should've sent it to you. I'll make a motion that we close.
Adjourn, second.
Second?
Close.
Holy
Whatever.
gee whiz.
Leave.
These women are motivated.
Okay, so anybody want to make a second?
Second.
See there.
All right, any discussion?
Hello, dinner.
All in favor, say aye.
We had-
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
We've had a lot of discussion
Passes.
tonight.
It was all.
I'm sorry, but
Hey, I,
driveway reminded me of